just like that. Yo. This mic, this life, and this game is mine. Yep, it's my time. Peep this mic dominant, intelligence is prominent. Dropping all sorts of ill gems on your conscience. Many years, I lay patient just waiting.
Hey everybody, thank you for tuning in to They Ain't Ready, the podcast about race and gender. I'm your host, Tracy Walker. Oh, y'all ready now? This is part 2 of the season opener. And man, I'm trying to breathe, take a little breather, y'all. We've had so many things happen over the summer. I don't know why summer was so popping. Like all the information, all different things. I think everybody chose violence this summer. Everything wanted to be dropped and have these conversations. So I decided, I've touched on these topics a little bit here and there throughout the summer, but I kind of wanted to do a review. And as you see, I'm doing a review with Dr. L. David Stewart, and we're going to talk about some of these hot topics. So we're going to kind of hit it and quit it a little bit on these topics, but I've been amazed at some of the things that we've had, some juicy topics that happened this summer. So if you haven't looked at season 2 episodes, go back and look at some of them. You'll hear my take on a lot of things. And so I've given you my raw opinion on things. But yes, I have entered the danger zone. I have introduced these topics to Dr. L. David Stewart of Ghost Wolf Holdings to have these conversations. So I hope y'all ready. Buckle up. You know, if you are not ready for real conversations, I don't never want to get rid of a listener, but you may want to tune off this episode. Maybe come back for episode 3 or 4. We may be a little bit more. Well, no, I can't even say that we're going to be like that for 3 or 4 or 5. You know, this is season 3 now, so we done got our feet wet, so it's going to be what it's going to be. But let's dive into this episode. Are you ready?
Let me say before we start, the views of Dr. L. David Stewart do not represent They Ain't Ready or any entities that I am a member, an active membership of, or represent in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Okay, let's go.
Oh, I love this clearance. This clearance is getting me. So, got about 5 topics, okay?
Let's do it.
All right. So we're going to try to monitor this, y'all try to stay a few minutes. So I know you're going to get mad if I move on from a topic when we're right in it. But I got to hit some of these topics in this review. So this is in no particular order, people. You know I had to start off with the big one. You know I had to go to, as I affectionately call it, Nuck If You Buck.
Mm-hmm.
The Montgomery Brawl. The Montgomery Brawl. I had to go into there. We gotta talk about it. So to catch up those that may be living on an island and don't know what happened, okay? There was this boat of a few passengers, whatever, that was blocking a big, larger ship to come in. And so the captain went to tell the people to move. They didn't move. So when he came back in to tell them to move, they got mad and got off the boat and started fighting the man. And then what you have seen became the brawl because people came from everywhere. People swam across rivers and stuff to get to this fight.
Literally.
To deal with this brawl. And so I am going to open it up with your comments about the brawl before I ask any questions.
Okay.
Go ahead. Tell me your comments on this brawl. Like when you, because see, I was oblivious to this. I didn't know what happened. All I kept seeing is chairs popping up on my timeline, seeing FA and FO words on my timeline. And I was like, what in the world is going on? So when I saw the video, I had my reaction. So what was yours? Oh,
I had
Lord.
to sip of water for the ancestors before I talk about this.
Okay.
So, I think I was out and someone sent me a clip. You know, everyone sends things. And the title, for those who are uneducated, FAFO, because I know our gracious host doesn't curse. Fuck around and find out.
Don't at all.
So I look at it, and you ever see something like live that or online that you like, yo, this was a skit, but this was real? So first off, let me also say that I do not condone violence unless it is self-respect. First off, the caucasity of these folks to get off the boat. And if you watch the video, the African-American gentleman was very respectful. I don't know what the words were said, but they chose to enforce their caucasity in the South because they felt empowered to do so, to run up on my man. And then there was a clarion call that a lot of people don't understand. For those of you who remember the rap artist Bobby Shmurda, my man took the hat off and it was like a bat signal.
Yes.
And y'all got to understand that as a black man in this country, when you know you finna get into it with white people, there are certain things you're going to accept. Number one, this will not be a fair fight, literally. Number two, if no one records it, it is me against y'all for my life. That black man realized, as we say, I'm finna put the pause on y'all. And he did what he did, you know, woo-wop the bam, as we say in Chicago, put the foom fops on him, but he was losing, right? But what happened, and incidentally, the boat was named Harriet. Can't overlook that detail.
Yes.
So it was the spirit of the ancestors, and what got me was oftentimes, and I'm laughing, but oftentimes when black people are fighting for their lives, people are only recording. There's no help. Young brother, if he ain't on somebody's Olympic team for swimming, that's what got me. My man jumped in and had perfect Michael Phelpian form with Crocs, got out, took his shoes off just like black people because we care about our kicks, right? Like, hold on, we gonna put these right here. Young fella rolled up on these folks and gave out 3 pieces with extra biscuits. That boy had to be 16 to 17 punching like John Henry. Do you hear me? He was laying people out like church clothes, Easter Sunday. Power bombed a few people, right? So now I'm looking at this because the ratchet part of me is intrigued because there are some racist people getting beat up. And whenever I see racists getting beat up, it warms my spirit, okay? You know, DEI is one thing. Watching a racist catch hands just warms my heart like hot chocolate in November. But I digress. So at this point, we see black people coming, and it's interesting because while I'm laughing about it, there's a point that needs to be seen. Racists are as strong as we are not present.
Come on.
So when they were jumping that one black dude, you know, Chad, Billy Bob, you know, they were like, we gonna get this some bitch. They saw Rail, Daryl, and Cuz and Pooh and them. Oh, then it was like, come on now. So you went from Mike Tyson to Mahatma Gandhi. Now you want peace after you put hands on this brother. Now, let me say this because I thought it was funny. I felt bad for the black cops because I don't think they wanted to intercede. But the granddad with the folding chair was WWN people. Now,
not just people. It was the woman that caused them to stop it.
I don't agree with a man hitting a woman.
Right. It was
However, Clarence just was like, however do you want it? He was giving out he gave a new meaning to take several seats. He is popping ogre, and the cop like arrested, like you could tell he was like, dog, come on, man, I'm on camera. You know, and the thing is, while I'm laughing about it, how many times white people have done that and cops didn't want to intercede? So then they cut to a clip where some of these other white folks was running, and it was like 4 black dudes and 2 white guys, and you can just see the fear in these white guys, right? And I don't want no one to die, but let me tell you, again, this is why I gave the disclaimer. That fear was delicious to watch because you brought it on yourself. So now these black folks that came over here, we didn't talk about the 16-year-old boy. And let me tell you, that boy was swimming and fighting. If that boy ain't in somebody Navy SEAL training right now, that boy got out, took out his Crocs, and then they beat the Crocs off of one dude, threw one person overboard, and then they tried to be like, hold peace, hey, whoa. So my thing is, while I'm joking and being kind of facetious, there's something to be said about this. Again, when racists don't have repercussions, they are empowered. When they saw that them black folks was like, not today, now you nervous, like, wait, what? No. Y'all got off the boat and jumped on that black man, right?
For doing his job.
That man wasn't disrespectful or nothing. The only thing that was disrespectful is that Uncle Clarence teed off on Karen with a folding chair. Okay? And I felt bad, but again, that was an old black man. This is something no one want to talk about. All right? That's an old black man that if I'm looking at him visually, got to be about 60, 65 years old. That means he came through Jim Crow. And this was probably the one time in his life he knew he could get away with hitting a white person and not nothing too bad was going to happen. And he swung that from Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, because he knocked the earth, wind, and fire out of her. And then hit her again. I was like, bro. If it was a dude, I was like, damn it, Clarence. He hit Karen.
And he would have got away with the first one. The first one, I was fighting with him like, hey, you didn't see her.
Yeah.
Because you were just swinging. But the second one was deliberate.
Right.
The second one, he looked at her like, almost looked at her eyes and said, bam.
So I have a confession.
Okay.
A week after that thing hit, do you know what song I only listened to for a week?
Oh,
The Baby put some bop in it. Yo, I have a shirt made. Shout out to my little bro Baron that it literally says "See, swim, swing" with a chair on the back. Because it's black people, and again, I'm being facetious, but here's the cultural element of it. While it's funny, black people have been hung, burned, killed, shot in this country. We don't need to rehash it. But for one moment in time, we talked about George Floyd, Rodney King. For one moment in time, it was captured where we beat the brakes off of their ass. And there's something to be said about that, because some people will say, well, that's not fair. We don't like when black people get beat up. Why do you like when white people get beat up? Because sometimes we want to see the victim be the victor. Whether we want to admit it or not.
We always root for an underdog.
Yeah.
We root for an underdog.
But it was great. I mean, the memes of chair training, I was joking somewhere shortly after that. I saw a folding chair. I was like, hey, you might want to put that weapon away, fella.
But I think the point you brought up about the history of our people, this happened in Alabama. Like, y'all don't understand. When we say Montgomery, when we say some of these people are from Selma, I think some of the white people are from Selma. If you understand the history of what has gone on there, the lynchings, the burnings, the dogs being sicked on it, the heart of the civil rights movement moving through there, it was to me, and I had excitement. When I watched it, I was just I can't say I was enjoyed as much as you were like that, but I had the excitement of not seeing one of us choked out.
Right.
I think that was and I say excitement because I was like, oh yes, not one choked out.
And see, humor is for me that, because I think somewhere in the heavens, the great brother, late Reverend brother, Dr. Martin Luther King was, oh, you some bitches did me so dirty in Alabama. Oh, it was great to watch a white person get their ass whooped. Freedom rise, let freedom ring, bless that brother's child. The good Reverend brother, Dr. Martin Luther King loved it.
No.
I just want to say, if I was speaking with the spirit of Martin Luther King was somewhere like, you sons of bitches hit me with rocks. Cousin got him with a chair.
Clearly, I said this. I said this before I opened the door, y'all. I told y'all that I was going to open these doors to topics, and he gave the disclaimer. I didn't know he was going to channel MLK in this conversation. But to the point of that, it was, and us to have the evidence of it. So, because if you watch one of the clips, and when I did the podcast episode, I called the Audacity. Because Audacity met reality real quick.
Yeah.
You had Audacity, we had reality. It beat you out every time.
Yeah.
But the thing that got me is when the police did come, they were like, okay, all you saw was the white people being mollywopped all over the floor. So it would look like they were being beaten up and they were the victims, not the aggressor. But when I saw my people say, oh no, we got the film. We got the film. So there was people fighting, but there was also people filming. And it's sad nowadays to say that you have to have the film in order to have the evidence, because it's always going to be viewed the way it's perceived because of history.
But in all seriousness, and again, no disrespect to the family of King, I was having a little dark humor, please forgive me. That said though, one of the things that's interesting about that incident though, is if somebody was to say without film, these black people jumped me. We are in the South in Alabama.
Correct.
Anyone that's black and knows the history, if a black person is fighting in the South specifically, you know the repercussions that may come from this fight, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it was powerful to hear that we have the film, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, because normally in a situation like that, gentleman may lose his job, things like that. But what was beautiful, and again, I'm being serious now, is people hearing and chanting. It was like, look at that young brother go. It was so much culturally going on that some people said, I might not be able to do anything, but I'm gonna make sure the truth is told. You know,
True.
and the thing is, often, and I'm one of the people sometimes that's hard on our young generation. I'll be first to say that, but I got to give this young man his flowers, right? That young man was not even 18 years old and was so compelled from what he saw. Like, first off, he killed another myth that black people don't swim, right?
That part.
Wherever he got his swimming training from, I hope they are benefiting from lessons. Because if it was me, baby, I'd be like, I trained the black Michael Phelps. I'm making that money. It's capitalism. Got to make your money. But that young brother was so compelled that he got in the water to intervene. And I think that's something to be said, because often we come down on the young generation. Like, they don't care. This young brother was in the trenches, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, it's the universal, I call it the universal black communication tools. Wherever we go in the world, when we see black people, we give a head nod. We also, that means we understand each other.
Right.
So them black folks said, not that black man. He wasn't famous. He wasn't no rapper. He wasn't no athlete. That was just a regular brother doing his job. And them black folks on that boat said, not today. And I think that is something that, you know, my thing is, we're going to have Juneteenth and we're going to have August 6th. Those should be federal holidays. I think every black person should get a free chair from Home Depot in solidarity of that day. So we're just going to have fun.
Last thing we're moving on, I'm going to say, is it has impacted our culture. So I have to give a shout out to Actively Black.
Mhm.
If you don't know who Actively Black is, it's a black-owned clothing line that has was actually at New York Fashion Week, and it was one of the blackest Fashion Week shows that you ever seen.
Yes,
and it had Evian Crockett. He was on the runway, and he had his chair and he had his hat, and he walked down with his chair swinging, and he threw the hat up in the air, and it's in our culture now, you know. But it did cause people to go back in history, because people didn't even remember that the folding chair was made by a black man.
Right.
So did have some ironic abilities to that, but just saying. So this has left an indelible mark. I don't know if it's going to be a holiday, as you say, maybe our eternal holiday, as Juneteenth was for many years, even though some cultures celebrate it. But it will be marked as something that definitely happened this summer that was pivotal. So moving on to our next topic. Let's talk about the Supreme Court. Let's talk about this decision, affirmative action. So all of y'all know, and I clarified. I already did a podcast about this. I wanted to clarify, because everybody said affirmative action is over. That is not what happened with the decision. And I want to be very clear about that, because we say stuff and stuff get in news and we become triggered and we say, they've gotten rid of affirmative action. They didn't. What they said was they ruled in favor of its SFFA, was versus Harvard, and it's also UNC. They ruled that they cannot take the consideration of race in college admissions.
Correct.
That's what the decision was. It did not get rid of affirmative action. Though we know now, the reason why people are saying this is so pivotal, and I'm giving this foundation so people can understand, is now when the Supreme Court rules on something, or any court rules on anything, period, that now becomes precedent. So if you ever watched Law and Order or any TV show, or ever been in court, you will hear lawyers mention other cases as precedent about why they should move forward and why this is valid. So that's how they get their arguments. So now this becomes foundation for anybody else that brings a case up in any court to say you cannot use race. And that's why people are concerned about it, because does it apply to college admission? Yes. But what are the implications across the board?
All right. This is a fun topic, because I've had a lot of convo on this.
Okay.
Again, it did not outright outlaw affirmative action.
Correct.
What it did do in removing race is put into a situation where we're expecting people to be honest
Mm-hmm.
in a situation that they have proven not to be
Correct.
historically.
Mm-hmm.
So, again, you've given a great outline. One of the things that I got a kick out of this is, okay, if you're going to take race out of it, let's get rid of some of these legacy admissions.
Ooh,
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
want to talk about
And,
that.
and watching people get uncomfortable, because here's the thing, right?
Mhm.
Higher education is a business. Now, if you donate 10 to 15 million dollars to this university or this particular college because you went through, you expect your kid, no matter if they dumb as a box of rocks, to get in because
Bush.
yeah, you said it. I mean, exactly.
Sorry, I just had to say it. You know.
You know, but a lot of people think affluent means intelligent. They are not synonymous,
Mhm.
right? So it was just interesting because also, and I actually had a talk on Chicago radio about this very thing. I was like, we often like to say that race is not taken into account, should not be taken into account. But we're talking about a utopian situation, an idealistic
Mhm.
situation, right? So
Mhm.
one of the things I talk to my friends about is, okay, when you think of a basketball player, what race you think of? Black. I said, see how quick you said that? So when you think of a football player, what you think of? Black. I was like, see how quick you said that? So when you think of a soccer player, what do you think of? Hispanic. See how quick you said that? So if you think of architect, what do you think of? White. I said, therein lies my problem. So my thing is, if you're not going to take race into account,
Mhm.
why not take gender into account?
Mhm.
Oh, you're going to do that though. So again, why do you not want to take it? My thing is ask the questions, right?
Mhm.
So you may want to kick it down to the states. All right, cool. But what is the incentive of these different fields and colleges to reach out that are not predominantly or dominated historically by Black people,
Mhm.
right? You know, I use architecture given my background. My dissertation was on this. You know, you got 2,500 licensed architects in the United States today. And of that number, 600 of them are Black women today. All right, out of 100 and let's say 12,000 today. So if you're an architecture program, why are you going to the school, to the Black school with the kid that love to draw? All right, what's your incentive? And also, not having race pretty much absolves you of any blame,
Mhm.
because it's like now I have no reason to market. And the thing is, you're not tying any financial benefit to me doing it. Again,
Mhm.
it's a business. It's a business.
Mhm.
And then also, and I think no one wanted to talk about this, they use schools like Harvard, right?
Mhm.
Ivy League schools are outliers. There are black, white, whatever that have 4.0 and perfect everything that don't get in. But if I bet your daddy was a part of a certain club and made certain money, I bet you get in. So
Mhm.
my thing is, if you're gonna be fair, let's be fair all the way across the board. That was the problem that a lot of people had with it, that I had with it. Because my thing is, if you take nepotism and legacies out of it, because your daddy was a millionaire, you should get in, right? No. You got to be good too.
But many people don't want to really examine the power struggle that goes on with that.
Mhm.
It's all the money. You know, the legacy students. You know, I went here because there's a building named after this building's named after my grandfather.
Mhm.
I didn't have the grades to get in, but I'm here.
Mhm.
I made a whole political career, but I'm
Mhm.
here. You know, because I'm here because I went to the school.
Right, exactly.
And you talk about this like there's now a movement for people to use about this as a case, as a foundation for legacy and other things to be removed.
Mhm.
Now that we don't realize how this case, we always see this case negatively, but this
Mhm.
case could actually benefit
Yep.
other aspects that we're trying to push forward. But when I heard this, y'all know I work in higher education, it was a big uproar. And so we recently just got some communication about how we need to move forward looking at applications.
Mm.
And it was one person suggested, well, why don't we take everything that identifies the student where they went to school at, and we just do it completely blind. And I was like, that's hard to do. And they was like, well, why is it hard to do? And I said, because if I'm a Black student and I go to a HBCU, if I list my organizations, if I list my programs, the different things I'm involved with, there's going to be certain identifiers
Mhm.
that's going to identify where I went
Mhm.
and who I am.
Yes, it is.
I was like, there's some things culturally that I can't distinguish myself from in my application because it's who I am.
Right. So no one may know your name, your gender, your race, but if I see Black Student Union
Correct.
or certain Divine Nine fraternities and sororities that are, I would say, at minimum 95% African American, that would behoove one to believe you are such.
Correct.
But the thing about it is, you're not going to change the application. My thing is, there's a benefit for you having that. That's the thing that no one wants to talk about. I think if we're going to do that and be fair, but this country historically, especially in higher education, has not been fair.
No, it doesn't.
So again, it sounds good. And for me, you know, when people talk about Harvard, Yale, Princeton, Brown, all these Ivy League level schools, they operate at a different paradigm. Then, you know, they get to be selective, you know. But for what about the regular schools and the things about that? And my thing is, so how does that impact academic versus sports? To me, that's the one I just love ringing on, because it's like, oh, you don't care what his degree is in, long as he or she can play sports for you. You need black and brown, because if you took all the black and brown out of football and basketball, don't worry, I'll wait.
So, okay. So let's move on to our next topic.
What you got?
So, recently, the Crown Act has been implemented.
Okay.
The Crown Act is creating a respectful and open world for natural hair. And if anybody knows the backlash that people were getting from different employers about their hair, natural hair, women wearing braids and, you know, afros and different other type of stuff was being looked down upon, having problems, hiring and different things like that. It was really focused with the workforce. But I want to talk about the impact of the Crown Act being implemented. And we've been hearing a lot lately about this even more around this Crown Act. There's a young man, his name is Daryl George. He was a junior in high school, and he got suspended recently because his hair, he has dreads, did not meet the school's code for being clean or being presentable. And so we're hearing a lot of that. We've seen pictures of sports, students playing sports that had to have their hair cut before they could participate in certain sports and stuff like that. And I really want to talk about the fact that the Crown Act could possibly happen in education. For a world that's supposed to be a place of academic freedom, to now still having people looked at about their hair and having restraints. Kind of wanted to hear your talk about that.
You notice I have a James Baldwin-esque sarcastic look about this, because this to me is another one of those comments where issues where people pick and choose.
Okay.
So for instance, the military has updated its regulations on certain things like beards and things like that. And this is in the theater of war, right?
Correct.
So my thing is, fashion should not be a safety issue. If you can prove it's a safety issue, I'm with you, right? But here's the thing. No one says anything when other cultures mimic us and do the same thing, right?
Okay, come on.
You know, for instance, I know a lot of women with, you know, coily, curly hair and things like that. But no one don't want to say nothing when some of our Caucasian folks don't wash their hair and they're dirty with lice. And that's a safety hazard, right?
It is.
So what you're saying is this European standard is what we want you to have. Okay. But then you get to take my culture. With all due respect, fuck you. So for me, hearing about a young kid's hair being cut because it doesn't meet our standards is ludicrous. Because y'all are the same people that want to season your food like us, want to dress like us. You know, I always laugh when I see racists wearing Jordans. Just warms my heart. So again, with the hair, it's like, tell me how this is impeding something, right? And again, for a lot of longer hairstyles that we as African Americans enjoy, there has to be a maintenance to it, and we're very particular about our hair. It is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So what's the problem? Because the reason I say what's the problem is over the last few years, we've seen things like Europeans with cornrows, right? And then they're welcome. Black women and boys have been laughed at for years about that. You know, now the very people who called us monkey lips who ironically have lips closer to monkeys than we do, want to have lip fillers.
Mhm.
So you want to look like us. So the hair thing is like, hair means something in most cultures, right?
Mhm.
Hair means something to folks of various African backgrounds. It means something to us as African Americans. It's why we have the relationships we have with our barbers and our salons and our stylists.
Mhm.
So again, how is the hair impeding it? You know, but I also get mad at that because I've known women personally who have different various hairstyles where people just want to touch on it. Like I'm not a house pet. Like, oh, let me touch your hair.
Yes.
You know, when I had longer hair, it was the same thing. And it was like, ma'am, if you don't get your mitts off me, like I'm not no trained like animal in the cage you can touch. So I think corporate America struggles with this issue because it becomes a diversity issue. Because I have seen many people who've chosen to lock their hair who aren't black in
Mhm.
professional settings. Oh, it's great. Or depending on the industry, like if the hair is not like in the way, what's the problem? To me, it shows a bias that it's stupid to have in 2023.
It's almost like I call it it's okay for us to have it because it's a fetish,
Mm-hmm.
but for you, it's something that we look down upon. And the reason I say that is because recently, for those that follow me know that I got to go out the country, and I had one of the most angry moments I've had in such a long time. And when I say I was angry, I literally had to walk out the room because I felt a nuck if you buck moment. Like if they had said one more word, I was going to swing. And so let me explain to you a little bit what happened real quick. I was able to go to a museum and see mummies, the bodies, of Egyptians, kings and queens. And one of the queens was there with braids. And was supposed to be quiet, respectful. This is their pretty much burial place right now,
Mhm.
So you're respectful. Like you go to a funeral, you don't talk loud, you don't do all kind of crazy things.
Mm-hmm.
And so she's in a plexiglass, and I walk up and I look at her, and I'm seeing the hair, and then, I had this pride, like, braids have been from so long ago, and
Mm-hmm.
this is so wonderful. And two white men come up over, it's like, oh, look at her, look at this. And I had a flashback to like the sideshows when we used to be tranced around different parts of the country
Sure.
to be observed about be objectified. And the anger that boiled from me was so deep and strong that I literally had to walk out the room because I felt myself about to say a couple words that might have gotten me in trouble in the country that I was in. So I had to keep Tracy down. And I say that to say is that the fetish is real.
Yes.
They fetishize us, but don't want to accept us. I understand not using the hair, having long hair in certain sports, like maybe wrestling I can understand because could be a liability with wrestling. But if you look at football players, we have so many dreaded football players in the NFL, and they wear helmets. So I don't understand this. We have dreads in NBA. I mean, so many places have changed, but kids can't go to school and have freedom where a place is supposed to be free.
But the fetishization that you talked about is real, and I think that's the other part that makes a lot of us mad, right? Because culturally, Black people make the world go round. Recently, being out the country, you see it. To see people in multiple countries talking, doing the things that we do in Chicago, right? But the problem with the fetishization is when it's done, then it's like no more, put it away. And that to me bothers me. The very fact that an act had to be put in place for Black men and Black women for their hair. I mean, that speaks volumes.
It does.
Because I know a lot of professionals who have dreadlocks, locks of various lengths, very well maintained, men and women, professionals and things like that. And the thing is, why is it that when we do something, it is unprofessional? Again, those are the questions I like asking because it's like, okay, I can see if it was unkempt, it was not clean, it was not well done. Fine, I understand that, but it's like something so cultural. But then everyone else can have their cultural nuance.
But we can't have our culture Because if we express our cultures, we're reconnecting to who we are.
Mhm.
And I feel that the disconnection of who we are is a power struggle. Because if you really connect to who you are, being out the country, being able to see all the inventions, all the things that we've done and been stolen. Do you know how many museums have so many artifacts from Africa that you go to the actual continent and they cannot display their own artifacts because some other country?
I think I told you I almost had a Killmonger moment from Black Panther a couple of times.
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's like now I understand that.
Yeah.
But to wrap up on the Crown Act, it's still economics, right? Because it's like Black people gonna look good whether we got money or not, right? That is just who we are, especially in this country. But a lot of people don't understand that while it may seem trivial, is because there were so many times we were poor and ragged, we were not allowed to what we call literally dress up. So maintenance of our appearance means everything to us because a lot of us historically were downtrodden, things like that. So in the corporate world, people say, well, the corporate world you gotta adjust to the corporate world. No, corporate world gotta adjust to us because the corporate world, yet again, is making money off of who? Okay.
Us.
So and I'll wrap up with this point on it. If you're a banker, maybe. Law, maybe. If you got this rule at an art school, like seriously, you know what I'm saying? So again, it becomes contextual. So my thing is to anyone dealing with this, if your job has an issue with you properly maintaining your hair and and they care about, and they, for lack of a better word, assimilate other cultures. Because, my thing I look at is, how you going to get mad at me, but then some of you most racist folks who don't like Hispanic folks got the audacity to have a sombrero on May 5th, and then eat tacos, but then turn around and want to say them people need to go back home. That's kind of how I feel about the Crown Act. My thing is, I've learned even be careful of using the term African. Africa is a country that is comprised of over 50 countries. Be specific, right? Have the due diligence to do your awareness. And my thing is, this is to you HR professionals, because I think I said in another episode, most of the HR professionals a lot of times are white, so you have no cultural sensitivity. Oh, that's right. Y'all took the DEI stuff out. Okay, I quit.
Well, don't quit yet, because we about to dive back into this DEI stuff.
Oh, tell me more.
So, our next topic. Florida. Oh, Florida.
Near and dear to my heart.
I know it is. That's that's why I had to talk about this, because I know it's near and dear to your heart.
Yeah, buddy.
The Florida Board of Education that set us back how many years actually approved not just two, but a new set of rules around curriculum requiring teachers to talk about. And in there's two particular things that came out of it. So the first one is they approved a new standard that instruction for high school students will talk about several race massacres, including Tulsa, that were acts of violence perpetuated by African Americans. The second point is that middle schools will now learn that how slaves developed skills, which were some instances could be applied for their own personal benefit. So these are two new standards now that are going to be taught in Florida schools. And go.
I was about to say, tell me when to go. All right.
Oh, Lord, help us all.
Sue. Again, a lot of folks knew I have businesses. I have two active businesses in Florida. Lived down there, lived in Miami. Certain things I know from living in Florida. Okay. Florida is like the cousin that shouldn't drink that keeps making moonshine. And then keeps going to like all the family functions. They're gonna fuck some shit up. So, to your point with education, DeSantis knew what he was doing to rile people up, number one. And I would challenge many people to look into the background of Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis was a former military officer and he's a trained lawyer. That man is in some ways more dangerous than Trump because he is very smart. He is very smart. You know, when I read that about the education, I chuckled because I knew DeSantis was about to write his own ticket that's going to screw his career. Mark this podcast.
Mhm.
Because shortly afterward, he passed a rule about immigration
Mhm.
about if you know of people that are not immigrants, you need to report them. And subsequently, and look this up if I'm lying, the construction industry has been dramatically impacted
Yes, it has.
by that.
Mhm.
So because some of them black folks ain't doing cheap labor no more. We did it before. We
Mm-mm.
done. White
Mhm.
folks don't want to get sweaty and it's hot.
Mhm.
So with education, DeSantis is trying to appeal to Trump's base by saying certain things, right?
Mhm.
One of the other frustrating things about Florida, particularly South Florida where I lived in, is because some of our brown brothers and sisters think they white and they not fighting on your behalf.
Mm.
It is a lot of Cubans, and again, this is no shot, that don't see themselves as Hispanic. And to me, if you're a Hispanic person voting for Trump or DeSantis, that is like roaches voting for Raid. In the case of DeSantis, with the narrative, he's not the only one. Texas is doing something similar.
Yes, they are.
So again, this is where we have to be in the trenches because you can't misnarrate the Holocaust.
Mm-hmm.
This is from someone who has been to school in Germany. I've studied German architecture and I've studied that, and I've been to a plantation and I've been to a concentration camp.
Mm.
Very familiar, very similar. You can't write that out. So the thing is, it behooves us to step in using our churches and other things to tell our story.
Yes,
because
yes.
the danger of this is, while this act may pass, think about what happens 20 years when this is in place for 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And DeSantis has gone so far to even almost try to outlaw Divine Nine organizations.
Yes, he has.
In Florida.
Yes, he
and
has.
we have active senators and state representatives who are members of these organizations. So the Florida Board of Education, to kind of bring it full circle, as I said in another episode, Florida is a lot of red Republicans. It is a lot of just white people that don't like black people. It really is.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have a Cuban population who think of themselves in the American dream like them.
Mm-hmm.
It ain't a lot of black. If you take out Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Orlando, Tampa Bay, and Jayville for FAMU, it ain't a lot of black folks down there. So for those involved, you got to get in the trenches because he can set a standard nationally that could be very, very dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And the Florida Board of Education has also argued about critical race theory, which I think is the most hilarious shit possible. Because number one, if you know anything about critical race theory, and I'm not an expert just because I'm black, it's not taught at the high school level.
It's not. It's really started in the law schools.
Correct. Critical race theory has been manipulated like the term woke was like, we don't want to teach our kids this. But then you turn around and give them Asian American Awareness Month. So again, you're creating a divisive environment.
Mm-hmm.
I think that this is one of those tools that for black people in Florida, you got to go back to your oral traditions and document it. One of the things historically we have not been able to do is document our history.
Mm-hmm.
And this is in multiple facets. You know, one of the things that I'll give folks a great example. Anybody that likes history, look up the history of Coconut Grove in Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Coconut Grove was a Bahamian town, and actually Miami was founded by black people. Very few people know that.
Mm-hmm.
But Coconut Grove was like a predominantly black area that existed for over 100 years that they're trying to push us out of. Sound familiar to everybody?
Mm-hmm.
But again, we're not narrating our stories. We're not telling our history. And the thing is, if we don't tell kids the truth about slavery, because the thing about slavery in this country don't like dealing with is ugly history. We don't.
Mm-hmm.
I personally think, and I know this is a hot take that's going to make some people mad, I don't think we should be tearing down these racist statues. I'm going to tell you why. I think we need to remind them because it's like the N-word. People say, oh, we shouldn't use the word nigga because it's bad. Who called me a nigga? Nigga.
Who made it?
Who made the word? Right? So to me, because a lot of people don't understand, those statues that have been erected in the South was for historical reprogramming purposes that was done by the ladies of the Confederate.
Mhm.
So no. Don't take it down. I want your name on it because I want future generations to know what you did. Because what you not going to do, as the kids say, is whitewash this history.
Mm.
Because people think slavery was not that bad. I challenge you to go to the museum in Alabama where you talk about the Clotilda and the Slavery Museum.
Yes.
I challenge you to go to the museum in D.C. The thing about slavery is we are emotionally and physically and subconsciously dealing with the results of what happened well over almost 200 years ago.
And the impact it's having. To say you talk about the museum, I got to go to Greensboro, North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell this experience real quickly because I didn't know how much I was still triggered by some stuff that I didn't even get to experience.
Mm-hmm.
So this was not about slavery, but it was about so if you don't know about Greensboro, there is the Woolworth counter.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got to go to the museum and they take you to the Woolworth counter, so I saw it. But there's this exhibit, and they give you a warning about the exhibit, talking about the face of lynching.
Mm-hmm.
And they have this little warning. They have the Ku Klux Klan hooded outfit outside the door. I went to open the door, and I saw the pictures and the way they had it set up with the red light behind it, and I closed the door. I couldn't go through it.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I didn't experience it, I have family experience it. I have the stories that's been told to me. It is real to us, and it still has a traumatic effect going down the line. So your point is we have to keep telling these stories about what really happened in slavery. If you understand the brutality of it, the reason why we don't know where we come from, because we were sold from plantation to plantation, ripped from heritage, not able to keep information. For all those that say, and I'm going to say this part, and I'm going to let you have it back, that say, well, we was force-fed Christianity. We weren't force-fed Christianity. There was a certain Bible that was created for us that didn't have everything in it. They only put the master and slave relationships, and they changed the words to master and slave. Actually, if you understand in the Bible, that wasn't even how the terminology was used in different languages. They changed that. I said, and so the Bible looked the same like our Bible, but it was less of a lot of the scriptures and chapters were missing from it to make us think that this is what God planned was for our lives. And I said, and so to keep this going, to have this other side saying it's beneficial, there were some benefits of it. You learn from us, not we learn from you. And that's the dynamic to not understand the resources, the inventions that we created, the things that we did, and how we built this country.
So this is going to be a little bit emotionally disturbing for your listeners and viewers, but
I'll put a disclaimer on it.
One of the things that made me learn about slavery as a kid was the Holocaust. I'm going to share a personal anecdote. The day I was born, and my sister can attest to this, they couldn't find my dad because my dad was watching a documentary on Hitler. When I got old enough and kind of led me, I was like, what was so fascinating about this man? And again, I have, to my Jewish friends, I'm not putting this man on a pedestal, but what intrigued me was this man almost brought the world to its knees, literally. And I've been to Berlin, look up the Wannsee conference where they came up with the final solution. One of the things they did, and it's like, well, where are you going with this German situation and the Florida Board of Education? The night, it was something as the night of the Reichstag, 1933, the burning of the books. The burning of the books is when Hitler and his party took over and they started burning books, Judaic books, anything that was contrarian to their movement. All right, kind of see where I'm going with this, right? So the first thing that Hitler did with the Nazi party was burn books. Cool. Then they